Ooh wee. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this very precious, very important conversation. We are live across every platform, I think YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. We've got you covered. And welcome to this beautiful conversation that I'm about to have with this amazing guest who I'm going to introduce to you in a second. We are going to be talking about breaking free. This conversation is paramount for your body, for your voice, for your freedom. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is go ahead and tag your friends, your family, your followers, tell them to get in here. Yeah, it's going to change their lives. And so, if you're on LinkedIn, tag people, get them to tag people, and then tag some more. Get all of your networks onto this conversation because this conversation has the ability to really shift your income. It has the ability to really shift how you're experiencing your body. And we're going to be talking and we're going to have some grown folks talk today. And I am so excited to have the most beautiful guest, Devi Maisha Kalfani. Honey, this lady, I have been following her and her work, and I am so privileged to be connected with her on some of these social networks because she really helps women to get in touch with their sensuality and their liberation and their freedom. I'm going to allow her to talk about herself in a second, but everybody, give it up for Miss Devi Maisha. Woo!
Thank you. What an intro. What an intro. I have to say really quickly though that I want people to know. So I met you initially on Clubhouse
Yes.
and you were doing a room on listening to people's voices. And I love speaking. I know people are afraid of public speaking. I love speaking. So I was like, yes, let
Yes.
Charlene hear my voice. And the things that you said still resonate with me to this day. And this was like 2 years ago,
Mm,
and you were telling me that like you could hear me holding back my power in my voice.
mm,
And I was like, oh, she's so spot on. And it really ties into some things that I'm recalibrating today. And I still like, I remember how it felt. I remember not all of the words, but the energy of what you said to me. And it reson like it stays with me when I do things. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Oh, you are more than welcome. And thank you for reminding me to introduce myself because I am Charlene, the vocal alchemist, and I help you to use your voice to double your income. So think communication, pitching, sales, marketing, public speaking. Everywhere that you speak, people are listening to the energetics of your voice and the content of your voice. And it is my job, my role to help you to speak with so much freedom and so much authority that people throw money at you and say, take it, please. And so, in this way, I help business owners, people with corporate roles to really double your income. So, this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to have a conversation with Miss Maisha, but I want you to, if you can, wherever you can, listen with a soft belly. If you can, please do not do more than one thing at a time. If you cannot multitask, I'm inviting you to just be with us because this conversation, as it lands in your body, as you listen to our voices and let it reverberate through your tissues, through your cells, it's going to really shift you. And there are going to be some profound insights that you have as a result of giving us your presence and your time. So, I really want to go to the beginning because I follow your content and I've been watching what it is that you do. Good morning, David. Please go ahead and tag your friends, family, followers, let them know that we are in here. So I've been looking at your content and following along with your journey. So let's begin here.
Mhm.
Why is women's sensual freedom so important to you?
Ooh, um, because it's through that freedom that we find our greatest self-expression. It is through that freedom that we find our self-development. It is through sensual freedom that we literally find our voice.
Mm,
And as women, our voices have been very suppressed. Our true voice, our true nature, our true desires have been suppressed. And I have found that it is through releasing oneself sensually,
mm,
sexually, that you find your power. And
mm.
that's why it's so important to me.
Yeah. It's an interesting one because as I'm feeling through the layers of what you're saying, and looking out into the landscape of women, I can really see lots of blockages in the form of I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed to
Mhm.
feel like this. I'm not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to express myself like this. And I'm not allowed to be seen like that. Could you
Right.
speak to that phrase, that subconscious phrase of I'm not allowed?
Yeah, and it's rooted in shame.
Yes.
Really, is that from the time that we were young girls, there was so much shame put upon us,
Mm,
for and the shame came from fear, right? So I understand the nuance of wanting to protect,
mm,
because there is an element to being, uh, a girl, a woman in this world, that comes with it a sense of danger, not because of us, but because of society's twisted ways of thinking.
sure.
So out of fear of our safety, the idea is, well, let's shame behaviors, because if we shame behaviors, then she's not going to do it. And then we'll also put upon her religious and cultural and societal restrictions. So she's not allowed to do these things. And the hope is, A, will keep her safe, and also will keep her subjugated, because her power is dangerous. From the time we're little, it's the shame piece of don't move like that,
Mm,
don't be too fast,
mm,
smile, be nice, be good, don't talk back too much, don't show your anger, always be grateful, which ends up translating into accept the bare minimum or the crumbs, because you should just be grateful for what you get.
right.
And all of this forms this relationship that we have to ourselves, to the world, to our feminine power. But it's rooted in fear and shame.
Mm. And as I'm listening to you talk about shame, because I would agree, I would definitely concur with that. I'd love to talk about responsibility
Mhm,
because I'm seeing responsibility being placed on women's shoulders in a way that is really lopsided.
mhm.
And it shows up in people's marriages and it shows up in the form of heaviness. It shows up in the form of being overworked and overstressed. Can you talk a bit about shame, sexual shame,
Mhm.
and responsibility being placed on the girl, on the woman? I'd love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, ooh, this is rich. So the responsibility that has been placed upon us is a responsibility of servitude and caregiver,
Mm,
that we have become responsible for everyone's emotions,
mm,
uh, and the keeper of the peace, if you will. Some of that is a truth in our power, but it has to my understanding, that has been distorted. So we are immensely powerful as women. We can shift and turn the tide of anything on a dime. That power frightens a lot of people. It frightens men, it frightens other women.
yeah.
So better to take a portion of that power, twist it in a way, give us a shadow version of it, right?
Mm,
So we become this martyr,
mm,
and that becomes our responsibility. We will just take care of everyone, which we are natural nurturers. That is a gift, a strength. But we take care of everyone at the expense of
sure.
ourselves. So we are giving out all of our life force energy, but we're not to ask for anything in return. And that's the distortion.
Yeah.
Whereas we're to be given and fed constantly and consistently so we can give back. The distortion is we don't need to be fed anything at all. And we can just give out to everyone else. And that
Yeah.
the responsibility for everything rests on our shoulders. Really, our responsibility is to our power
Mm.
that exists within us. And when we're in right relationship with that, those other distortions in marriages and relationships no longer exist. And the same applies um, to our sexual responsibilities. There has again been this distortion that we are not to be vocal about what it is we desire. Same thing, it's the same concept, and we're to take it. We are here for someone else's pleasure. And when again, we take the power and responsibility in that area to say, this is what I like, this is what I need, this is what I desire, this is how I like to be touched, then
Yeah.
it becomes a different story. So our power and responsibility has been distorted to serve the masses, but when we take the ownership back in a different way, things will naturally right themselves.
Hmm. What do you think we're scared of? You mentioned feminine power being something that men and women are scared of. What do you think we are scared of?
I think women are scared of their own power and the
Mm.
idea that we can uh, be that responsible, because in many ways we've been taught to be the maiden who doesn't know what she's doing, who needs to be rescued. We
Oof.
were fed those stories. And so
Mhm.
now we're afraid of our power. We're afraid of coming across too bitchy,
Ooh.
too aggressive,
Yeah.
too mean, too
Mhm.
direct.
Yes.
When in reality, when we own all of that, it's a very different world.
Mm.
Men are afraid of that power because when it is twisted and when it is used in the wrong way, think Helen of Troy, think Cleopatra, there is a fear of what can happen to them and how they can lose themselves in
Mm.
us and lose their own power when they're not grounded.
Right.
And instead of teaching everyone how to actually show up in proper form, it becomes easier to let the underbelly of masculine energy run amok and let it attract the underbelly of feminine energy, which just causes chaos everywhere.
Mm. This is fascinating. There's so many things I want to talk about, but I just want to say welcome to everybody who is here. You are in the middle of a juicy conversation. We're talking about freedom, we're talking about power, we're talking about sex, sensuality, our voices. And I want to touch on a point that you were talking about before about being afraid to come across too bitchy,
Mhm.
um, too direct. This is definitely something that I see a lot in my work, where
Mhm.
I'm really supporting women in really owning the value of what it is that they do in their business, right? So, and it's so easy to get lost in the source, as it were, and say, I'm a business coach, when actually you're a business coach who's really supported couples in being saved from the brink of divorce because they were arguing about cash flow and now they're not because of
Yeah.
your services, and being able to really own everything that you offer. And it's an uncomfortable place for a
Yeah.
lot of women to really sit because it kind of makes them stand out a little bit. And
Mhm.
that thing of in the UK, I'm not sure if this is a worldwide term, but that term of the tall poppy syndrome, where there's poppies in a field and the tallest one gets clipped down. And
Uh-huh.
so there's fear that if you stand out too much, then you'll be under attack. And
Yes.
so when it comes to sensuality and sex, it's even more taboo.
Mhm.
How do you support a woman to own her pleasure and her sensuality when everything in her is telling her to do the opposite?
Slowly,
Mm,
because because it is very much walking against the wind
mhm.
with that. And so, and as I mentioned, there are real fears and concerns. And this is so fascinating that we're having this conversation, and I don't believe in any coincidences. This is
Right.
exactly as I'm working through my this new moon that's coming in, that's in Virgo, and I'm a Virgo, and all of this power. One of the things that I'm working through still to this day is the fear of being seen
Mm,
and of standing out, because when
mm,
you go against the grain, everyone sees you, and as you said, you're up for attack. So this is real for women, because in the real physical realm, yes, we do face that possibility more. Right?
mhm.
That's statistics show us that.
Yes.
But then you have your family who is like, out of, again, safety and concern. Are you sure you want to talk about that? And
Mm.
I saw your post the other
Oh, yeah.
day, and I get worried for you. And then, of course, the religious conditioning. This is your place. Don't
Mm,
get out of your lane. And so we have to do this slowly, because part of this work is nervous system work, is expanding the capacity for safety in our own bodies first,
mhm,
recognizing the fact that there are parts of the world that simply are not necessarily physically safe, but
mm,
how can we create safety in ourselves and be grounded in our own bodies so that we don't allow the fear to overtake us? We're not going to necessarily get rid of the fear, but
yeah.
how can we work with the fear and take that energy and alchemize it to our advantage? And that's the work that I do, and I utilize pleasure and sex to do that, because it's fun.
Right. I wanna go back to that point, about, owning your power.
Mhm,
We've spoken about our bodies and freedom, and whenever it comes down to the voice,
mhm,
there's this assumption that a powerful woman is a bitch.
mhm,
And there is this like pendulum swing to the opposite extreme. So you're either a church mouse or a bitch,
right,
back and forth, back and forth. And
right.
my thing, what I really stand for in my work is about embodiment.
Yes.
And so when you are embodied, you are neither of those things. You can be direct and internally soft. You can be direct and say what it is that you mean without any defense or sword and shield in your voice. It's so possible. So you've spoken about your work, and I like your first word that you said, which was it's a slow process.
Mhm.
It's a slow guiding, to her reclaiming herself. And what are some of the signs, first of all, that a woman needs to take this journey?
Mm. One of the most direct signs to me is an inability to experience pleasure in the bedroom.
Right?
You've got a partner who's with you, and there's love, but there's just this inability to experience pleasure in the bedroom. There's an inability to state one's desires. There are women who come to me who have no idea what they even want,
Sure.
because they've spent so much time worrying about what everyone else wants. That movie, The Notebook, that scene, the reason why it's so iconic, where he's like, "What do you want?" And there are memes
Right.
about it, because that's so many women. I don't know. It's not that simple. And he's like, "But
Yeah.
some," and then there are other subtle signs which women don't necessarily acknowledge, like body aches and pains and headaches, um, thyroid issues, uh, womb health issues, that let me know that their body is contracted and
Yes.
it's not open.
Mm.
and it's not able to receive, which is what we're meant to do. We're
Yeah.
meant to receive, right?
Yes,
To
we are.
receive and take and churn back out and make it, spin it into gold, if you will. So when women come to me and these things are present, normally they'll come to me first on the upper level of not being able to have pleasure, and then we work through the other pieces underneath as we
Mhm.
go along.
This is so beautiful. I am so grateful that you are here. You are so important. The space that you hold is so important. And just in case no one's told you that today, I'm telling you that today.
Thank you.
Because, you know, one of the things that I see happening in people's voices in regards to the steps that they need, the steps that they would start, the signs, I'm sorry, that they would kind of notice that I need to look at this is being underpaid.
Mm.
Many women have been taught to be nice, and they have been taught not to talk about money, and definitely not to talk about more money.
Right, right.
Listen. Okay, so for those of you who are not aware, I have music industry background, right? So I've sung with people like Adele, John Legend, Jennifer Hudson, right? And in the music industry, you must speak up or you could be exploited or underpaid. I've been in situations where I have been underpaid compared to different people in the band. And because I'm a feisty little thing, and because I'm very bold, I was able to negotiate double my income many times. And this is what I help women to do in their careers.
Mm.
But in corporate roles, things get a bit more complicated. And there is this political environment that women are in where it feels like the stakes are higher. People don't want to lose their jobs, they don't want to fall out with their manager or their boss. Can you talk about your work in regards to, do you have experience supporting people in corporate roles? And what have you noticed has come up with those types of women?
Mm. Yes, yes, I do, and yes, and so I had a client recently who, the position she was at her job, she was very much the caregiver, the caretaker. It's very stressful for
Mm,
her, and it was we were doing somatic work, which is also part of my practice, and she was talking about this pain that she was having in her leg and her back, and I was asking her questions around when it started, and it coincided with some issues she was having with her supervisor. And as we continued on, it was clear that as at work as in her other relationships, she didn't say no. There was this idea of, I it's okay, I can take it, I can bear the
right.
brunt of it on my back.
Oof.
Um, it was almost like as she realized, how much can I endure? And it's like, like it's not that painful for me, but it was
Oof.
showing up in her body,
Good grief.
right? And that's what I meant about like the physical symptoms. So it's showing up in her body. So she ended up leaving that position. She got something that was much better. And as she was exiting, she noticed the pain was leaving. As when she told her supervisor about it, we coached through how they could have that conversation without her feeling apologetic. Like, "I'm so sorry, I couldn't," like she felt like she was leaving everyone behind, and how that relates to life, because how we are in work is how we are in life, really. And so we worked through all of that, and she was able to leave. She experienced less pain. She came to so many of her own conclusions in her work, which is what I love. I love it when we open the door and then the woman sees herself, right? It's not about me telling you who you are, but it's I'm clearing space, I'm wiping the mirror so you can see who you actually are. And from there, it's like, oh, wait. So she's entering this beautiful new phase of her life, and she's looking to see how this will now apply to dating and using her voice and exploring her pleasure. So that's one example of a woman who's worked in corporate. And I find that it's the corporate woman who needs some of this the most.
Yeah. Yeah. What is that thing of I can take it, it's fine. I'm not fine, but I'm fine. What is that? Where does that come from for us?
That is conditioning. That is
Mm.
very much conditioning of you are here to bear pain. And dare I say,
Ooh,
for
Lord.
many people, I think that part of that is religious conditioning that even if you're not religious, seeps into your mind that in the beginning of time, it was a woman who caused the fall of man, who was told that childbirth would now be painful. She would
Right.
bear this pain. And that type of idea just keeps infesting itself in different ways to the point of I'm a woman, I can bear the pain of everything, and it's okay. It's my duty. And I'm like,
Mm,
no, that is not
mm,
what you were built for at all. And I'll
yeah.
say that that's not what you were built for because you have one body part that no one else has, one body part that is only designed for pleasure. You
Mm,
clearly were not made for to just bear pain. You were created to experience pleasure.
mm. I can feel people
Mhm.
around this video, whether they are on the replay or not. But I can feel the fear of that word pleasure. I
Yeah.
can feel it. How do we as women sink into our birthright
Mm,
pleasure?
mm. It's the reason why this conversation is so I'm loving it so much, not just because we both do alchemy, but the vocal cords, the
Mm,
way they are shaped, the way
mhm,
they are created, the
mm,
musculature of them directly correlates to the vaginal canal.
yes.
And so there is a direct correlation between a woman's ability and her capacity to receive pleasure and to speak
Mhm.
and to own that power in the world,
Yes.
right? So when it Lord, I think I forgot your question. When it comes to how do we deal with this fear around pleasure?
Yeah.
I wish I had a concrete answer for that. Honestly, I do. And similar to you, when I hear a woman speaking, I can tell whether or not I can tell there's a tightness, right?
Mhm,
And the voice and for me it's like, oh, she's not connected. Those body parts aren't connected.
mhm.
Or the sound of the pitch of her voice. I'm like, it's not connected, right?
Yeah.
That's not her real pitch.
Yep.
Um, but I think this is going to be such a slow process, which is admittedly frustrating because when you can see people and you can see their power, there's a part of you that's like, come on, let's go, let's run with it.
Yeah.
But there is this understanding that it's I'm not just working with a woman. I'm working with a woman and her society. I'm working with a woman and her religious beliefs. I'm working with a woman and her culture and her family. And so I have to take that into account that there is still going to be a lot of fear around a woman's voice, around her pleasure, around her sensuality and sexuality. I don't know when or if that tide will turn, but I will do my baby steps part to, teach this woman who hopefully will teach a few others or her daughters. And we'll just have to do it that way. but I've come to the conclusion that I don't know that there's an answer. I wish there was for how we can deal with this fear on a more immediate level.
Yeah. And, listening to you, it kind of dropped in that a really powerful answer is about modeling. That when you've got queens who are willing to step in like you are, to model something
Mm,
different, it challenges the status quo. And, it's quite hard to become something that you've never seen. And
yeah.
so you being seen in the way that you are is so paramount to the conversation around pleasure changing. And you are absolutely correct. When it comes to the voice, you know, there's the technical stuff of when you're doing public speaking and, eye contact and cadence and projection and all of these things. But how I teach is embodiment first. Give yourself goosebumps. And if you find your subject matter boring, dedicate it to your newborn and then give yourself goosebumps. you know and so when people are listening to you, they can feel the energy of what it is that you're saying, and
Yes.
now they're sitting forward in their chairs because they're like,
Mhm.
she's talking about a flow chart, but I want it. I want what she's talking about. Monday morning meetings have never been so sexy, honey.
It's
So
seduction.
yes, and so what you are doing is the answer. It's about modeling something different. And so, in regards to people who are listening to this video, and by the way, thank you for tagging people. Grand rising to you,
Oh,
Valerie.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Anne Marie. Thank you so much, Maria, Risha, everybody for being here. Maria, I'm sorry, not Marie. Um, it's a pleasure to have you all into this sacred conversation, because what we are saying doesn't mean that you now need to grab a gong on a mountaintop and talk about your parts. That is not what we are talking about. But what we are talking about is that when I say you can have a soft belly when you speak, you can lay down your sword and shield when you speak with
Mhm.
no defense and no, self-protection even. You can just really trust yourself and be direct from that space. And when Maisha is talking about really owning your pleasure, there are we don't need to go to the extreme where we're now clanging our gongs. It really comes down to this: the willingness to feel good in your everyday life.
Yes.
And if you can commit to feeling good when you sleep, feeling good when you wake up, feeling good when you take that first sip of coffee, and listen, when you're sipping your coffee, being like, "Mm, this coconut creamer is so good."
My God,
And
how did you know? That's what's in my coffee.
yeah, and the temperature is just right. And I'm gonna sip this coffee and I'm just gonna sit
Yes.
in my window seat if you have one, and I'm just gonna watch the clouds or listen to the rain. You can find pleasure in everyday things. So there doesn't have to be this massive leap to where we are and what we are talking about. So, how would you encourage women listening to this live and listening to the replay
Mm.
to start reclaiming their pleasure in the most basic, beautiful ways that could impact their everyday life?
You really just described it. That's where I start. I start
Yeah,
with, because when people think sensuality, they automatically think sex, which there is sensuality in sex, but you
right.
don't have to have sex to be sensual. I
Mhm.
encourage women to start with their five senses, or however many senses you have. And it's about the clothing that you put on. What does it feel like? Right? How does it feel on your skin? your body lotion when you're putting it on. Don't just just because we're racing, but really
Yeah.
take time to feel the cocoa butter, the shea butter, the coconut oil going on to your body, the music you're listening to, or whatever it is that you're listening to. Let it be something that uplifts, that arouses the senses, the fragrances that you put on. I always encourage women as much as possible to take at least 10 minutes to eat. And it's amazing how many women say 10 minutes. That's so long.
Yeah. It
I know
really.
you're busy, but take 10 minutes and let the textures of the food roll around in your mouth and taste the flavors. And side
Yeah.
note, doing that actually helps with other sexual acts, I'm just saying.
All
But
right.
taking the time to eat slowly and taste things, all
Mhm.
of that is a way for a woman to begin to embody herself, because you'll find that it's like, wait, I don't actually like this color. I don't
Mm,
like these clothes. I've been
mm.
eating this food, but it doesn't feel good to me or in my body. And you start to shift and say, oh, this is who I really am. This is what I really desire. This is what I actually really want to wear. It
Yeah.
really just can start with the five senses.
Mm.
That's it.
I love that. I love that so much. And it actually reminds me of times that I have deliberately and consciously practiced what I call intuitive eating, which is just really slowing down and really savoring the food. And everything was just so much more yummy. And I recognize that I actually don't enjoy pastry as much as I thought. Because I'm like chewing this thing and it's like this feels like cardboard in my mouth.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was really illuminating. But I want to talk about time.
Mm.
And a lot of our, what should I call them? We leak power and we can leak things that are pleasurable by rushing.
Mhm.
Can you talk about the mastery of the present moment? And what would you say to women about their relationship with time?
It's it's as though we have none. That's
Mm,
the prevailing thought. We have no time. We're
yeah,
running out of time. We have to
yeah,
squeeze everything in. There's this experiment that I did once when my children were very little, and my ex-husband he loved the clock, he loved the time. And I said, "Today, we're not going to look at time at all." It was a weekend day. We're not gonna
yeah,
look at time at
yeah,
all, and just see how the day progresses.
yeah,
I know we live in a fast-paced world. I know everybody's got to get to work and here and there. The days that you don't or you can afford to, do not look at the clocks. Do not set the timer to wake up. Notice how your body reacts to the day. And
mm,
initially, upon doing this, what some people find is this hum of anxiety underneath, because what's
yes,
next? What's next? What's next? What's next?
yes,
And
yes,
that lets you know that you're operating at this constant level. But if you
yes,
can do it more often, you'll start to slow yourself down. You'll start to be in the present moment without worrying about the time or what's next or what's coming after this. It's an experiment that people can practice and just see where their bodies land with
yeah.
that.
Ah, what you're saying is so powerful. And what I would say about the voice is that the voice that everybody hears, your external voice starts from somewhere. It
Mhm.
starts from the way that you speak about yourself, and it also starts with how you are receiving your divine voice, your intuition, those little nudges, those instructions, those little images that you might see. All of these things are trying to interact with you to give you what you want. And one thing that I would say is when it comes to time, if you believe that you don't have enough of it, you are going to miss intuition that gives you the shortcut, the leg up, the boost to get what you want in way less time. Do you have like any sort of personal experience with slowing down, really being able to receive the voice of God
Mhm.
and the impact that that's had on you?
Yes. And so my method of doing that is during self-pleasure, which is why it's so important to me because that's a time to commune with your body. It can
Mhm,
become a meditative experience.
mhm,
And that has been part of my meditation. I meditate the regular way. You know, I'll sit in a chair or I'll meditate while washing dishes. There are different ways to meditate. But one of the ways that I meditate is during my self-pleasure practice. And in my studies of Tantra, really working to slow that down. And I remember the first time it was, and this was some years ago, but it's like, okay, your self-pleasure practice, let's make that 45 minutes to an hour. And I was like, and how? Like, how am I stretching that out? And so I have learned to be able to slow down the entire process, the entire communion with my body, the way I set up the whole entire scene for myself, that I can have a self-pleasure meditative session that lasts an hour where and I'm not looking at the clock, and I'm not seeking for an outcome or a goal. I am literally lost in the moment of the sensations in my body. And during that time, and there's science behind this. There's science behind what happens to the frontal lobe during meditation. There's science behind what happens to the frontal lobe during pleasure. So during this time, my conscious mind has stepped back,
mhm,
and it is allowing my subconscious to come to the forefront. I am allowing myself to receive downloads and messages that are coming into me. There's no consciousness that's telling me, that's putting up boundaries or barriers around what's possible. And in the moment of climax, I am in the highest moment of reception
mhm,
possible. And it
mhm,
is amazing what happens even when you slow that process down. Instead of it being 10, 20 seconds, allowing it to last a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And the way those waves, when they wash over you, allow you to open up even more and hear the soul self on a clearer level. It's beautiful to me what's possible with the body when we allow ourselves that space to receive and open. That's my
mhm.
practice.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, in regards to the voice, I would say to follow the pleasure in a different way, whereas noticing those moments of intuition as something really pleasurable,
Mhm,
something quite exciting. I started to track the voice of God in my own life.
mhm,
So I started to see movies in my head of premonitions of things to come, and I would date stamp it and time stamp it, and I would wait to see how long it would come into my reality. And sometimes it was 4 minutes, sometimes it was 3 days, sometimes a couple of weeks. But that that is so that is like it's so exciting to me. And so you can turn receiving your intuition into something really powerful. You have to stay, because I've noticed that sometimes the voice of God speaks so quickly and you blink and you miss it.
yes.
So you can practice some really simple ways to get really present, such as meditation. I like to tell everyone to have a soft belly. And if you're noticing constriction around your belly, just invite you to just breathe into your
Mhm,
stomach and allow that to just relax. It makes such a big difference. So, what can or where can people find you, and what are you offering at this moment?
Yes, so people can find me all over. I'm Googleable. So people can find me all over at Sensual Energy Alchemy. I'm online as Sensual Energy Alchemy or Devi Maisha. And yes, I do have a wonderful group that is starting Sunday, September 15th. Reclaim Your Pleasure. I did close the doors, but I was like, my birthday is Wednesday, and I'm doing this live stream with you today. So I will
Yes.
reopen the doors for
Yes.
today and tomorrow for my birthday for the women to come on in. And it's going to be about 5 weeks. Because I said 4, but I always end up extending my things. But it's going to be about 5 weeks of women doing exactly what we've talked about today, coming
Mm,
in, learning their body, learning their actual anatomy, understanding how to speak their desires. Literally, we're going to go over some communication skills and ways to speak your desires. You're going to learn how to transform your pleasure, not just take it from the bedroom, but into real life. At the end of this 4 weeks, the women who are there are going to know what pleases them, how to communicate it, and that's going to build their confidence, their
mm.
ability to create boundaries that will stick and last when it comes to families, partners, work, and anything else. And in doing so, these things actually do, as you said earlier, they improve your health, they improve your wealth. So much goes into this, but we're starting with the pleasure, and they're going to see how that's going to transform all of the other areas of their lives. So the doors are open for today and tomorrow for Reclaim Your Pleasure to join in.
Beautiful. And by the way, happy birthday for tomorrow.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Just in the link is in the chat, but just in case you can't see it, it is bit.ly/reclaim your pleasure. I'm going to be going ahead and putting the link at the various places that we are live just to make sure that you've got it. And I actually have something that is beginning tomorrow as well. I have the Speak with Mastery Intensive, where I'm going to be showing you how to negotiate your salary,
Mm.
double your income. I'm going to be showing you how to pitch, how to create allies at work, how to market your business, and how to really master your sales, where you don't feel salesy and you don't feel pressured and you don't feel competitive. And it's going to be amazing. It's a 4-week space, and I will put that link everywhere also. And so I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Devi Maisha.
It
Thank
is my honor.
mm, thank you so much for joining me. And thank you to everyone that tuned in and those of you who are on the replay. Go ahead and follow Miss Maisha everywhere. Everywhere. Facebook. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. Sensual Energy Alchemy everywhere. If you type in
Oh,
Sensual Energy Alchemy, www.sensualenergyalchemy.com. Yes,
yes.
it's all everywhere.
Beautiful. Please go ahead and follow her everywhere on all of her platforms. You can follow me, Charlene, the Vocal Alchemist, everywhere. And the website is speakwithmastery.com. And it has been my pleasure to speak with you today. And everyone, have a great day. Take care now.